Okay, so getting caught up in the lecture on video lecture on introductions, I started to get into a thing about using the word very, and I didn't want to get caught up and waste a lot of time on camera drumming my fingers and trying to get my words together. Maybe I should have thought it through before I started the video, but I just took the time in between here to figure it out what I want to say about it. So I've said that hedging is generally a bad idea. And I've said you're better if you qualify things. And now we're talking about these intensifiers, like very, highly, most, extremely. They work like hedges, and paradoxically, they make your writing sound worse. They becloud the prose, they undermine your intent, and I'll explain. Unmodified adjectives tend to be interpreted categorically. So honest means completely honest, right? Or at least completely honest within the context that matters here. Just as I say, Brooke drank the glass of wine, it implies she finished all of it. As opposed to just having half of it or leaving a few sips behind. As soon as you add the intensifier, you're turning an all or none dichotomy into a graduated scale. True, you're placing your subject high on the scale, right? Very honest, 9.7 out of 10. That's very honest. But it would have been better to just leave the reader not considering it as a matter of relative degree, which they didn't in the first place. If you just say that the person is honest, that's categorical. Once you make it very honest, then there's an area where they're not being honest, and that can work to undermine you. So the word very can be eliminated again almost without exception. The only case is when you have something like for that very reason. In those situations, it may make sense to keep the word. So looking at some other things we're doing here on the big picture. You want to use visual imagery. It stimulates the visual cortex of the brain. It's the most used part of your brain most of the time when you're awake, if you happen to have vision. And there are terms that you can use, that you can weave into your writing. And cognitive science has looked at different writing samples and people's engagement with them and found that this really works. I had just a few I was thinking about before I started filming this video, right? A term like bookending, meaning that an idea is bookended by some other group of thoughts, right? You can see the imagery there, what bookends look like. Dovetailing, if you've ever looked in woodworking. If you don't know what a dovetail joint is, Google dovetail joint and look at that. It's another term that's used to mean when two things fit together tightly. A chain of theories, an overarching principle, things progressing in a stepwise fashion, something having an aggressive posture, a sharp contrast. These are terms that create visual imagery, and they strengthen your writing and should be employed. Not to say every sentence has to have them, but look for the opportunities to put them in. I'll try to spot some for you when I'm doing the next round of edits and make some suggestions, and hopefully you'll see how things come along. And also, again, one of the earlier pointers I gave you is to read good writing. You'll see this stuff. There it is. You'll see this stuff in good writing. And if you're looking for it, you'll begin to notice it more and more. The generic cold open. I mentioned this in the introduction lecture, and I gave an example of it, and I think I've mentioned it in other places. The generic cold open is the big enemy of college writing. It's a real bring down. A has been controversial ever since the beginning of time, the beginning of the country, the last 40 years, what have you. It's meant to put a hook in the reader. It's meant to answer the so what question. Why should I read this? So what? Because I should read this because this has been a controversial social issue forever, right? And it's showing no signs of going away, and so that's why I should read it. But it's been seen so many times. It's become a cliche, and the person looking at your paper, particularly in an environment where your paper is getting a grade, we're sick of it. And so how do you fix it is the big question. Well, the way to fix it, it's not actually that hard to fix, because I've never seen a paper, well, I've seen lots of paper with generic cold opens, but I've never seen a paper with a generic cold open where if you read down a few sentences more, eventually you get to something that constitutes the real start of the paper, where the ideas start to come into focus. So what I do, and what I recommend people should do, is you should write your generic cold open sentence. You want to do it anyway, you need to get out of your system. Write it and keep writing and write your paper, then at the end go back, redline it, keep redlining until you get to what looks like the logical start of your paper. You'll know it when you see it. And your paper just gets strengthened so dramatically by that one simple move, right? Like, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm giving away the keys to the castle here, but that, more than anything else, in the eyes of your other professors, they will think of you as a better writer instantly once you start doing that, following that advice. That's the key right there. Another note I have here is about, I talked about using visual imagery, which is something you should be doing, but I'm also going to talk about using graphics, which I talk about more in the actual class than I do here and now, but we're a more visual society, we're becoming more visual all the time, and good graphics can really improve your paper. There's a book here by a guy named Edward Tufte, who is this is a pretty old book now, but nevertheless it was really important when it was written, and you'll see it on the shelves of a lot of political science instructors if you go and read the shelves. Always do that if you go to your instructor or professor's office, read the shelves. In any event, and this was before a lot of the explosion in data really happened. This book is from, yeah, the 1990s, so the big data was just starting to happen here. In any event, it's just got lots of great examples. I can't flip you through page by page and show them all to you. I was hoping to find and show you one in particular that Tufte considers really important. I think I have enough time to do that if I can just find the damn thing. How much time do I have? Oh, 2 minutes, plenty of time. Okay, very good. So, and you know what it is that's Tufte's other book. They're both good. I want this one. The visual display of quantitative information. And in it, he shows this. I'm just going to put it on the screen for you, and hopefully it can show up. So that right there, up and back. Look at that for a minute, or take a picture of it in your mind, and I'll quickly read this. I'll show it again. He shows how this Minard, a French engineer, captured 6 dimensions of Napoleon's disastrous attempt to take Moscow in one picture. It plots the size of the army, its location on a 2-dimensional surface, the direction of the army's movement, the temperature on various dates during the retreat from Moscow. It may be the greatest statistical graphic ever drawn. I don't expect you to get something quite that brilliant put together. That's Moscow at this end. They start out in Paris, and with the winter coming in, they die in droves, and they end up with a very tiny force returning. The point is, you really might, I mean, it seems like a cop-out to suggest for a course that people should take another course, but look on Coursera, places like that. If you can get a class under your belt that teaches you how to incorporate graphic information into your writing, you're actually putting yourself way ahead in the market right now. It's a skill that's more and more important for people to get their hands on. So I seriously recommend you give that some thought, particularly if you have any kind of quantitative bent at all in your work whatsoever. That is something that potential employers are really getting keen to see. Speaking of potential employers, I'm going to have a resume video coming to you shortly. I'd like to get a couple more resumes in and get a look at them, and I'll go from there. But that's what I got for now. All right, thanks.